Hello there, my crafty friends. It's Ashley Pfeiffer, the maker behind Stamped AF. This month for the Global Stampin' Video Hop, we are featuring our favorite item in our craft room. And mine, despite the ugly plates, which only goes to show how much I love it, is my Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. I love the full size, I love the mini, but I mean the full size gets the most amount of use. I am using a bundle that's only with us for a very short time. By the time you're seeing this, there's mere days left. So if you don't already have this, you really ought to consider getting it. Hopefully it's not sold out by then. I have not used this bundle nearly enough, but it's funny, I'm not even using my favorite stamp in this set, which is this one. I have made a couple of great projects, but this one I think might be my favorite. So I thought I'm going to show you a couple different ways to use the Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. I mean, die cutting, embossing. I thought about doing some impression things like using a mat to leave an impression in the cardstock, but we don't actually have mats available right now. There are ways you can do it without that, so maybe we can fit that in somewhere. But I did a whole bunch of die cutting. This gorgeous die here, I did it in 6 different colors. Nope, 7. I actually did 8, but 8 didn't fit on here. To me, this looks like a cursive heart, like you're just making these hearts like handwriting. So I've got the Brights rainbow. I've got this You're All heart in there, and I just love it. And then we've got the Dotty Hearts embossing folder, one of 2. And we've got some more die cuts in here. Now, I will tell you, I just recently re-inked my Memento Tuxedo Black ink, and obviously there was a part that had a little more ink than some of it, but I want to show you how to do this. Now, it may look intimidating. It is definitely a labor of love, and with June being Pride Month, I figured, I mean, I always love a rainbow, but what better time than the month of June to show pride, right? So let's get down to it. There's not a lot that we need from here. We're going to use this sentiment. So I need this heart. I need this heart, which gives us both the inner portion and this outline. Now, I actually had this left over. It's got some adhesive sheet on the back. Adhesive sheet will be a must on this project. We're going to use this die and this die. I also thought about using this one. Maybe we'll impress that somewhere in there. But I mean, this video is going to take some time because there is a lot going on, but I will speed through some of the process. I'll show you once and then we'll get going. So because I created a sample, I didn't want to be just flying blind for you with you. I've already cut out 1-inch strips of my Brights. So Poppy Parade, I used Flirty Flamingo, but it didn't fit. I might be able to squeeze it in there this time, but we'll see. Mango Melody, Daffodil Delight. We've got some Granny Apple Green hiding in there. Coastal Cabana, Pacific Point, and Gorgeous Grape. So beautiful rainbow colors. And I've got a sheet of the adhesive sheet. So I am going to peel this. So we've got 9 colors, so we need 9 inches. So I'm going to trim that down right away. Open up our paper trimmer. Now, in deciding what my must-have craft item was, you could really get stuck on that for a while, but I thought, you know, the Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine, there are so many different options, so let's go with that. So now I will cut off that excess. I will put some of my release paper back on here. The last thing you want to do when you are using release paper is run it through your embossing machine uncovered, because it will really do a number to your plate. It will just leave it a sticky, sticky mess. I'll show you the one. I'll show you how it comes out. Let's start with Gorgeous Grape. So I like to put it in on an angle and make sure it stays where it's supposed to. Now it's off of the edge there, but that's okay. And this does come out rather easily. You don't even have to bring it back through the other way. I can use my take your pick tool. I can use the pointy end of this cardstock, and that will pop all of them out. So I am going to do the rest of the colors, and I will be back in a moment. So to make this fun fold, we need a standard card. So it is 5.5 by 8.5, scored at 4 1/4. That is going to be the outside, and we are going to die cut a heart in there. Now, you might be wondering why I'm die cutting it now instead of putting all this down, because I am going to have to cut these parts manually. The answer is, if I die cut this later, I am going to flatten everything on here. And I know you can't see a ton of detail, but it does have a very nice bevel to it, I guess. It's not flat. And if I ran it through my Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine, it would be. So I will die cut this part. And next up, I will show you what we need for that inner panel. So I want to center this left to right. I do want to have more room on the bottom than the top. So we need a sheet that is 8.5 by 11. We are going to trim it down to 5 1/4 by 8. Die cut that in a minute. So since it's 5 1/4, we're going to take it from the long side, because then we can still get some mats from this. This is basic white regular. The thick is a little bit too much. So we've got 5 1/4, and now we're going to take a 1/2 inch off this side. And we are going to score it at 2 inches and 4 inches. Make sure that scoring blade is parked at the bottom. When I went to make my sample today, I ended up cutting partly into my base. So that's why I mention it. Okay, so now if we flip it, this is our inner panel. This we're going to fold out. So my card base is over here. So this is going to lie flat in there. And if you do different colors, it would look fantastic. I really love the stark look of a rainbow on white. And then I threw in a little bit of black because I love that stark contrast. You've got black, you've got white, you've got all the colors of the rainbow. Add some twine, and it's a perfect card. So I'm going to take this and die cut that part out. And then I'm also going to take this adorable Dotty Hearts embossing folder. This is one of 2, and I'm going to emboss just this one panel. I could do both, but if you can see, it's only 3 inches wide. So I wouldn't get all of it there, and trying to line it up again would be a nuisance. And I figure this is the part that we're going to see. So I'll line that up. And this is just a regular embossing folder, so I just need 2 of my clear plates. I don't need my 3D embossing folder. I don't need the thin die adapter. So, well, let me show you. Wouldn't be much of a Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine if I'm not showing you, right? But these die cuts were a little extra to show all of it. Now, when I'm doing something like this, I like to think of it as doing partial die cutting, because I don't want this whole card base to be on here. If you can see, my plates are well loved. So they are going to leave some impressions on my card base if I leave it. Okay, so I am only going to have it where the card front is on the plate. And then with my oh so warped folder or clear plate, I'm going to back that up, and I only want it to be at that line again. So it's like partial die cutting. Now, because my plate is so warped, it takes a little bit of extra effort to get it to go through. Okay, so that piece can come out. There's a little bit of marking on the back there. So again, I'm lining it up with that line, and if you're not sure, just bend it. You'll see where that line is. And now, we don't recommend putting them in sideways. You always want it to be going in with the seam first, but we can't fit it that way. Between the card base and the folder, it won't work that way. So I am going to line it up again with that plate just covering it. Okay, there we go. Clunk. And perfect. Now I want to burnish this. but I don't want to flatten those hearts that I've just done. So I'm going to take my bone folder and burnish that side so we get a nice crisp edge. And then wherever there isn't a heart, I'm going to use my bone folder and just give that a good crease. If I went over the whole thing, I would flatten that embossing, and I don't want to do that. So you could certainly burnish that before you emboss. Just giving you some tips and tricks that I've learned along the way. Some of those things we learn the hard way, but how stinking cute is this? Isn't it adorable? Dotty hearts, and I will have all the supplies listed in the description below. The companion in the Dotty hearts embossing folders, but I love that one. So I highly suggest laying out your hearts in the color, the order that you're going to put them in, and dry fitting them. Don't just start putting them on all willy-nilly because you'll run out of room. I even dry fit mine earlier and still ran out of room for my flirty flamingo, my flirt flam. So you might notice I'm putting some of them on where it dissects the first and last heart, and some of them where it goes just to that edge. I think it looks better that way versus having them all exactly the same. But if you want them all uniform, then that's the way you're going to lay them out. So I just noticed that this one should have been offset more, but did you see the beauty of this is they are so easy to peel. The dots come out when you peel it, and they're not at all as fragile as you would think. Isn't that awesome? So we're going to be stuck a little bit because I pushed there, but I am just going to use my scissors. I could use a guillotine trimmer, but I think I'm just going to use my scissors and cut these pieces off. Your scissors can get gummed up because, of course, these all have adhesive on them. Make sure you give them a good press because you don't want to be cutting off a piece that is supposed to be staying. Okay, so there is that side. If there's a piece that's popping up, you can just go in with some liquid glue and add a little bit. Doesn't that look like fun? It just scribbles. Ouch. So now I can come in and cut this as well. And you go with whatever's more comfortable for you. If it's easier to cut from the outside, do that. But it's not, doesn't have to be 100% perfect. I mean, we do have a heart that needs to kind of fit in here in order for this to close, but it doesn't have to be 100% precise. We can go ahead and adhere this, and when I'm adhering my inner panel anywhere where I'm going to be stamping or writing, I do like to use Stamp & Seal because it doesn't show. If I use liquid glue, I would end up with those wretched little glue worms unless I use a very fine coat, but I do prefer to use Stamp & Seal for the inside. So fold that up. We're going to leave the same, I want to say 1/4 inch margin on all 4 sides. Might be a little bit off there, but that's okay. That part's going to be folded down. No one's going to notice. Coming together already, isn't it? So now we've got this one white heart, and truth be told, that is what I had the first time around. But then when I stamped with my memento, remember I said that it inked up heavier in one spot than another? I decided, you know what? I kind of want a black heart. So I am going to die cut a black heart with that larger one, the same one we used for our window. And we'll keep this because this has the adhesive on it, but we will die cut a black heart and then stamp and heat emboss our sentiment. So I'm using the sentiment You're All Heart because I mean the whole front is hearts, right? Stamp that with Versamark. Put some white embossing powder on there. And if you have any extra bits, you can just use a dry paintbrush or your finger very carefully to get those off. And because this is so small, I am going to use my reverse tweezers. If you don't have that, you could use a clothespin, just anything to keep your fingers away from the heat tool because it does get awfully hot. And with such a small shape, there's only so many places for your fingers to hide. So what I did was I actually put this one on some white cardstock, but again, that's because I messed up my sentiment the first time around. If you didn't, you can just put this on as is if you want to have a white heart to cover the little bit of pattern from that. By all means, I figure I already have it here, so might as well, right? There we go. I don't want it coming apart. So I will just lay that down. Get it all lined up. I shouldn't see any white when it's in the right place. And so now what I can do is I will close up my card and I am going to apply glue just on the opening. I don't want that much right near the edge because it will kind of squish out. Okay, so now I'm going to line this up. So you might have to maneuver it just a little bit that first time around. I've picked up a little sticky bit. Beautiful, right? And what we're going to do is, this part is entirely optional, but because I already have it here, I might as well use it. This is that one that is the outline. And I will link to one of the videos I did with this for a Valentine's Day treat because this made such a perfect little frame for my vellum window on the box. So this is going to go on the heart, not on the front of the card because it is meant to fit that heart. So get it where it needs to be on the bottom and just kind of come around. And I know you're not going to be able to get an idea of what this looks like, but it just adds a little bit of dimension. This, I think I'm going to go with, I'll stick with my Memento because we've got a black and white theme going here, but I am going to stamp it off first to make sure that I don't have too much ink in one area. Watch, I've tested it and now I'm going to mess it up. So make sure it's flat. You don't want it popping up and moving the stamp on you. I'm sorry, this is so close to the bottom. There we go. Still a little bit thick in there. But again, that is just the way I re-inked it. I guess I got more ink in that one little section. So I don't want to close this right now because this will smudge. And I haven't gone through this much effort to wreck it now. I happen to have a piece of basic white that still has some adhesive on it. We don't need all of these hearts, but I'm trying to figure out a way that we might be able to angle it where we get more of them. I think that way. I'm just going to die cut that off screen. So we do get the positive and the negative for these ones. I just want the negative. And I think I'll just use this piece of cardstock to color on. So I'm going to get my dark colors of all of these. Now we don't have a gorgeous grape. It may not be perfect, but we also can't see the outside when we're on the inside, right? Improvising. But know that you can do it with the matching cardstock. It's just a little tedious. Worth it, but tedious. And given how long this video has been already, you don't need any more tedious. Okay, so I do want the sizes to stagger, and you might notice this is Mango Melody and Daffodil Delight. The cardstock got overlapped, and I love it. I did have to piece them back together, but it worked. Okay, so I'm gonna zoom through this part. I will list all the colors. So while all of the colors aren't a perfect match, that definitely was faster and easier than trying to line up all the cardstock. And look, not too darn bad, is it? Especially when you get to the gorgeous grape and the Pacific Point. They're not too bad considering we don't have those colors. Okay, so final steps are just to add a little bit of the black baker's twine, which comes in the Essentials pack. I have already used every last bit of my Whisper White. So we'll just eyeball an amount there. Tie a knot and then a bow. We'll add some of the matte black dots, black matte dots. I can never remember which way it is. I'm pretty sure it's matte black dots. They are part of an upcoming online class of mine, so I just had to place an order for some. Okay, and I like fairly small loops. You can make your loops whatever size you'd like. This is definitely my favorite way to add a little bit of ribbon. I find that I use more twine than anything else. I think because it's just so easy. Close that up. Oh, it's so pretty. But we need one more little pop of black. They are black matte dots. Woo! We got some stragglers. I think those are the small ones that I took off today because I decided I wanted some larger ones. So I used a few of the small ones. Let's say 2 small ones and then 3 large. Whenever you're using an embellishment, you want to work in odd numbers. So 1, 3, 5, 7. I'm going to spread these out so we don't have them in the same rows. Let's put one up here and then maybe one more small one down here. I feel like a big one might be too much. So one in the yellows, but I don't want them on like the same spot. I am trying to keep it where it's in between a heart, so maybe we'll move this one. And these are on glue dots, so it is fairly easy to pick them up. There we go. You could add a little bit of black splatter, but at this point it would probably make more of a mess. So I hope that you enjoyed that. I hope that if you don't have a Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine, you will order one ASAP. If you try any of these techniques, I would love to see what you create. You can tag me on Instagram at StampedAF. You can share them on my Facebook page or group. You can email them to me. Do whatever you'd like. Send a carrier pigeon. If this was your first time here, it's always late, but welcome, of course, and I hope you will consider hitting that subscribe button below. You'll catch a new video each and every week, and on some weeks, like this week, you will catch more than one video in a week. So I thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you soon, my crafty friends. Bye!